And some people seems to think this, that we're heading renewable energy we have so much, it'll get cheap or free.
A big and important disclosure I have to make here is this episode will not be about attacking green hydrogen.
And the people criticizing green hydrogen, saying that it's not energy efficient.
Welcome back to the Natural Hydrogen Investment Podcast, where we help you understand this opportunity and give you insights on the natural hydrogen market. I'm Anthony Muhye, a hydrogen enthusiast and a chemical engineer.
And I'm Morten Stahl, a founding partner of specialized investor Natural Hydrogen Ventures.
Every 2 weeks, we give you insights, interviews, and more information on the natural hydrogen space. But before we begin, I want to remind you about the 2025 investor report on natural hydrogen that we have on our website, nath2investing.com. That's nath2investing.com. Sign up and you can get it totally for free. Oh, and don't forget, if you're on YouTube, you can like and subscribe to our channel to get updated every time we release an episode. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, you can subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We love 5-star reviews, believe me. So, without further ado, let's get started. Morten, more or less, what's the difference between green hydrogen and natural hydrogen?
Well, what you see now is me being really excited because this is one of many favorite top subjects, because there's a big difference. But when you start talking about natural hydrogen with people, I do the first talk and people sometimes say, yeah, so you mean green hydrogen? No, that's why I said natural. But that might be why geologic hydrogen is also a really good name for this industry. But, judges are still out on this one, and natural hydrogen seems still to be the most used. But green hydrogen, as some of you probably know, this is hydrogen made from electricity that splits water. And it's called green because if this electricity is from windmill or solar cells, then it doesn't produce any carbon emission in the process of producing this hydrogen. And it's what people mostly thinks of when thinking about hydrogen. And in Denmark, where I'm from, we call it power to X, meaning electricity to something else. And people will sometimes tell me, well, natural hydrogen, okay, it's from the subsurface. Why do we need to disturb the subsurface? Why can't we just build windmills? And I'm trying to tell them, but somewhere in the world, there's a really big hole where we dug up all the stuff for windmills. So we need just to figure out how to solve this. But this is exactly also one of the problems with green hydrogen. It's the cost. Because the cost of green hydrogen production is mainly electricity. You gotta need electricity to put it into a machine called an electrolyzer to split it. But even if you imagine that the electrolyzers were fully 100% efficient, which they're not, and also cheap, well, free, you still have a huge cost of buying the electricity. And that's because it costs something to build the windmills or the solar cells. You gotta dig stuff up and build this. And the people criticizing green hydrogen, saying that it's not energy efficient and it's important, it's not natural hydrogen, but green hydrogen, is that you're using electricity, turning it into hydrogen, and turning it back into electricity, which kind of means that it goes this way because it'll be going down and you'll be wasting energy. And this works perfectly if you had a lot of energy. And some people seems to think this, that we're heading renewable energy, we have so much, it'll get cheap or free, but it isn't really what's happening. And I think that's what's right now disappointing the market, that the electricity price haven't not come down so much that the green hydrogen starts getting cheap enough to actually be used.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt. I mean, a big and important disclosure I have to make here is this episode will not be about attacking green hydrogen. I have a green hydrogen background myself. I think Morten also has the exposure to green hydrogen. So it's very important for us to see from a pragmatic point of view, this discussion is not about trashing one so the other can rise. No, it's actually finding the most efficient, cost efficient, especially, way to produce hydrogen or to extract hydrogen if it's the case of natural, and thus to accelerate the energy transition a bit more. Actually, just a bit of context, without the intention of adding time onto this. I had a startup in 2022. It was a green hydrogen startup. We were building towards funding green hydrogen early stage startups. So I am very invested in the green and natural hydrogen space. So back on to you, Morten.
I'm glad, because I am so full of natural hydrogen that, I'm glad you reminded me that you're right. There's no problem. I do think we need all the energy sources we can get. There's no silver bullet in the goal to have a zero low carbon energy transition. We need everything we can get. We just also need to be aware of where you can get the best bang for your buck, because it always comes down to price. And somewhere in the world, it seems that you can actually produce electricity cheap enough to make green hydrogen viable. I'm sure that will be, and even in the future, maybe that'll be more often the case. But right now, you could just look at the news flow out there. Right now, it seems that a lot of green hydrogen projects is not taking off because it's difficult to have someone to commit to buy the hydrogen, the offtake agreement, so you can get all these machines built. Um, it seems it's still too expensive. That's the only thing you can deduct out of it. That must be the reason. Uh, and there's all things that can be said, and so I don't disagree with people who think that maybe electricity is better used as just electricity. But that doesn't mean that we don't need hydrogen. And sometimes green hydrogen makes sense for some chemical industry purposes. But even if we can electrify a lot of things, we still need the molecule. We still need hydrogen for ammonia. We probably need it to produce some kind of aviation fuel because batteries for planes is not around the corner. So there will be places, but definitely let me also use the opportunity to say I do think electricity is great also. But the big difference between green and natural hydrogen, besides the price, and this is probably what this the reason for the price difference, the potential price difference, is that green hydrogen is essentially only an energy carrier. You are producing energy somewhere else, turning that into hydrogen to put it back into electricity, meaning that it might be valuable as a store of energy. I'm not an expert in energy storage, but always have to be, compared with compressed air energy storage, batteries, but it has the potential, definitely. But basically, it's not an energy. It's an energy carrier. But natural hydrogen is an energy. It is produced. We get it as hydrogen, meaning you can take away all your thinking about being a waste of energy if you use natural hydrogen for cars, even. I do think, electric cars probably work quite well. It's a good idea. And turning electricity into hydrogen to put it in a car, maybe that won't work. But if hydrogen already, it could make sense. This is not what we're betting on when we're making investments. You'll have to wait for a lot of infrastructure to be in place. We do like hydrogen where it's used already, but just saying that it totally changes the way you look at hydrogen, that it's already an energy. It's not converted into something else. It's a real energy.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up quite greatly. Natural hydrogen, to me, that's the most interesting part. It's an energy source, not just the energy carrier. I think the problem we've had with the green hydrogen has been, if you're taking electricity, which you could be using to already power everything you're using, why are you turning it to green hydrogen, losing efficiency in this process to power the same things? So at the end of the day, green hydrogen, to me, I'm more bullish on using it for chemical feedstock, like you mentioned, like for steel, fertilizer, and other uses of ammonia. There's methanol as well. There's cement, I think, is also another one they've been using it for. So these are, I'm a chemical engineer, so chemistry is always going to be the most interesting application for me. And in terms of energy, we can use it as an energy carrier for long-term storage. So, for example, we have, I mean, I don't want to go too much now on green hydrogen because it's not what the podcast is about. But I know that when there are periods of excess energy, we can take that energy, renewable, and use it to make hydrogen. Not necessarily as the main usage of our energy, actually for only for excess. That makes sense, but otherwise, natural hydrogen makes much more sense. So when it comes to the costs, I'm not sure if you were going to add something, but just adding this question. When it comes to the costs, why do these matter so much in the long run to investors? I know it's also about return on investment, sure. But what are the costs more or less, and why are these so important when it comes to building a project?
Well, I think before I answer that, kind of obvious question of, how does cost matter? I want to say that I think all the things you mentioned, you can use green hydrogen for. This is totally correct. But the really interesting thing is that you can, of course, use natural hydrogen for the same thing. And And this is, when I looked into, what to do next as an investor 3 years ago, I landed on natural hydrogen because the potential to be this cheap means that this could be widely used, not just, in a corner niche somewhere you could use maybe some hydrogen. So I saw it as this. Uh, it was right about the COVID time where you were describing the black swan event, something that negatively surprises you a lot. So this is why we came up with the green swan. This is the positive event that natural hydrogen could be a green swan event because it could exponentially positively surprise you because it could grow quickly and deliver the clean energy we need. So
This is good storytelling for your brand. I mean, well, for
yeah,
our
yeah,
brand now. I mean, yeah, it's very good. I
gaming
didn't know
thing,
this.
self-promoting, my company. Sorry, and of course we lent the swan to NetH2 Investing, sadly ending up being a black swan in our NetH2 Investing website logo. But let that be. But back to your question on the cost. I think from an investor point of view, green hydrogen looks interesting because engineers can truly tell you this works. We can draw it all up. You can say we build this machine, we put some power in here, and we end up with hydrogen over here, and we can calculate all the costs because we know approximately how much will the wind blow in this area. We're building the windmills. It just looks so nice, and it's all the information the banks will need to finance it. It's all the information the investors will need to do it. If only the price that ends up being would have a big market. So I'm not saying that it doesn't have, but we can all agree if this price is too expensive, it doesn't matter that you can actually map it out and do it technically. It will end up being non-sellable. So my argument will be, because this is of course where it differs from natural hydrogen. Natural hydrogen, you can't say for sure if you drill here and here, you'll find X amount. But if you do, it's very likely something that you'll produce really cheap and sell at a higher price. So I'm thinking from an investor perspective, it's the same as doing something that you don't know if it will produce or investing something that you know will produce something that's too expensive to be sold. The end result is the same. It's not delivering a return on investment, even if you could calculate very precisely the volumes that it's going to produce. So cost means if it's not cheap enough, no one's going to buy it. And we've all seen what happens if you tell people that they have to spend more on their fuel or energy. They get understandably angry. So it will not be a green swan event if it's not cheap and available for a lot of people.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe that green hydrogen is oscillating around $8 to $11 per kilo. I'm not sure if this is the number. I might be wrong. Yeah, it's at least $6+ dollars, and natural hydrogen has been estimated to be around $1 per kilo, or or even less. So, what other cost factors go into this? Because I know it's not just natural hydrogen is not just a matter of throwing an arrow here and saying, "Oh, this is where we'll find it." You actually need to go out, and that costs money and drilling and all of the prospecting that it involves. So, what is the big challenge here in terms of cost for natural hydrogen?
I think there's I'm sure there'll be some people who know a lot about green hydrogen who could argue that some places the price will be even lower, and for natural hydrogen, there's still a lot of unknowns, and because it will differ very much. How much will the well flow, and how much, meaning how much hydrogen will actually come to the surface. So you have your cost to divide onto this amount of hydrogen, but also especially what is the gas mix? What does it flow with? You'll have to purify the hydrogen, and that comes as an expense. That might be quite a substantial OPEX to keep this running. So there's a lot of calculation out there, both from Stanford University and from analytic energy company called Thunderset Energy. You have to buy the exact report, but maybe we can put a link down below, something to this report, which is interesting because it maps out the different potential. How much would the cost be? And maybe let's imagine the first well drilled doesn't produce very much, but even if it's $3 or $5 of hydrogen, then we will have a way to see it could go further down. If we get better at this, which is difficult where you have input costs to be paid, when you have to buy the electricity for green hydrogen or even natural gas for blue. But cost driver, definitely, how much will it flow means something. And of course, it means how deep you're gonna drill. But how much it's gonna cost to purify the gas is likely something that would really move the needle.
And here's another question that I have. Actually, I have two questions because I'm just as interested as anybody watching this. I think there are questions that I need to ask that I don't know myself. When it comes to transport, because I know green hydrogen, there are hubs. We are building hubs all over the place, close to industry, preferably, of course. But when it comes to natural hydrogen, I can find it in the middle of a field in nowhere, right? Not connected with any city. How does transport, and not just vehicle transport like shipping and land transport, but also pipes and so on, how does that get involved in the costs?
That's a lot, and that's even more difficult to pin down because uh, transporting hydrogen is just no fun. It has a low volumetric density. Just to be a bit technical, I'm sure you understand, but hopefully everyone else can follow. Meaning that if you have a standard sized truck, you can probably only put 600 kilos of hydrogen into this because it's difficult to cram it. You could cool it down and liquefy it, but that costs an immense amount of
A lot of
energy
money.
and money. So transporting hydrogen as it is not as easy as moving oil. You could, of course, build pipelines. There's no reason that you could build pipelines just like natural gas. You maybe use a bit more energy to pump it through because it's a lighter gas. But before we build pipelines for hydrogen, I think we need to see some really big discoveries. So looking at natural hydrogen, you do have a problem that is slightly bigger with natural hydrogen than green, that it matters where you find it. Not that green hydrogen is completely free of this, because if you really want to get the low prices, you got to go where the renewable energy is cheap, and that's where the wind blows and sun shines, and that is not equal around the world. Um, so finding out where to find it, that's important. And it's actually, as investor, this is something we map out. One of the first things in any given area, if we're speaking to a company, do you have market access? Because if you find hydrogen, it's not worth much if you're not near someone who's going to buy it. And maybe you can go for finding this massive reservoir of hydrogen, but as we haven't seen this yet, we want to prepare ourselves for maybe smaller discoveries as well. And that leads back into why I'm saying this a lot, I know, and I have a US map behind me, because actually the US map is for me to better understand US. I've been growing up kind of laughing at Americans because they can't find a way around European geography. Denmark is the capital of Sweden. But asking myself if I can find my way around the similar size, geography, I can't. So
Mhm.
this is here because I do look at it once in a while because US has so much potential because of the market access. You are always closer to someone who needs hydrogen in the US that you are on average many other places. But putting hydrogen on a truck, you as a rule of thumb, that just kills your project because it's expensive. You should be really lucky, maybe finding it close to someone who uses this as trucking fuel. But that's right now probably easier with green hydrogen.
Right. And the second question is probably, the elephant in the room. If you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere, there will be comments on this. I mean, we don't know. We don't know yet what the comments are going to be like. Maybe they're going to be brutal. People can be brutal in the comment sections. But the elephant in the room will always be, why haven't we found natural hydrogen yet? If it's so amazing, why is there so little of it in the world and so on? This is a problematic question because it causes a big discussion. What is your take on this?
Well, and that is right. This is until someone shows us a well that produces a lot of hydrogen. This is a really valid question. And I think you see it often when companies announce that they have found X amount of hydrogen in soil sampling or in the well. People will rightly ask, but how much did it flow? How much hydrogen? Because 89% of anything it doesn't matter if it's only of a kilo. It has to be of several tons. But we still don't know. And I think that is the reason why we haven't found it yet is because we so recently started looking for it. And I think it's amazing to see just the 3 years I've been working in this industry, how much understanding people now have of how much there actually is. All the times we made accidental discoveries of hydrogen. So it is truly down there. The US Geological Survey estimates trillions of tons of hydrogen, more than double the amount of energy that we have in the available natural gas reserves. But we still need to figure out where is this hydrogen accessible in commercial quantities. And I think that doesn't mean that the fact that we don't know this yet is that what makes this a good early stage investment opportunity. So people will tell me sometimes, why, that's the risk, why invest? But that's the point with investing. Unless you're a pension fund wanting to, return on investment of 2 or 3 or 5%, if you really want something that can go big, you have to be in early and you're going to take that risk. And I'm comforted by the fact that this is leveraging existing industry skills, an industry that has been really, really good at finding gases and anything everywhere. I'm sure, knowing that there's so much hydrogen down there, that these guys will make this work, and they are already looking into it. But of course, it is a risk. But if it weren't a risk, if this worked already, we wouldn't be doing this podcast because there'll be no early stage investment opportunity, and I wouldn't be running an investment fund. So it's kind of what it should be, So don't go out there, invest everything you have into natural hydrogen. But if you want to play a part of likely the next big thing in energy, invest a small amount,
Yeah.
Be reasonable.
And we already have an episode on that, which was the top 10 publicly traded companies. So maybe you should check that one out as well. I'm just throwing in an ad here. But okay, so, I mean, we've discussed quite a bit here. And I think this has become a bit of a debate because I am a bit of a green hydrogen guy. You are much more of a natural hydrogen guy. With the shifting environment now that we're seeing governments, they are shifting their stance. Suddenly, green hydrogen is not as popular because of the costs, and blue hydrogen is definitely not as popular anymore because of the limitations in carbon capture, I would say. Do you see that governments will now give a preference towards natural hydrogen in the next 5 years?
Well, I think we're sadly not at a point where we could say they will give us preference. I think I've always advocated that we don't need subsidies as an industry. If this works, it works without subsidies. You don't need money, but I would like it to be a level playing field. So whatever you're offering to blue and green hydrogen, all types of hydrogen should be offered to natural hydrogen as well. Things take time. This is back to how new this actually is. This is truly how it feels to be in a new industry. So lawmakers around the world are still trying to figure this out. They want to listen. And I think where it's furthest, where it has moved furthest is likely in the US, where you've seen public money invested into this. Department of Energy grants are being handed out. And where right now, admittedly, it's kind of up in the air where we are ending up with the Inflation Reduction Act, all the potential tax credit for hydrogen. We don't know yet where the new administration is on this, but it looked like if that's gonna happen, then natural hydrogen will too get a tax credit, meaning you could get $3 a kilo of hydrogen, even if it's natural hydrogen, and that really, again, that's why I have a US map behind me. But also Australia, they've been, you can get a license in Australia, you can get one in France. But to say that we are getting some special treatment as an industry, natural hydrogen industry, we don't yet. But I do appreciate that we still get the understanding from the industry that people don't get lawmakers. They're not scared. It's subsurface, because that could be a problem in Western Europe. We're kind of scared of touching anything. We might as well, we rather buy and import everything we need, then so it becomes a supply chain problem at some point. But we do need things for our batteries and our windmills and our energy. So, but that scare hasn't happened. I think it's because people understand that it's hydrogen. It's clean. It can be done right.
Okay, so moving on to the final question, because I think this is something I'm excited to ask you about. I think many people, they have different views on this. But when it comes to green hydrogen, natural hydrogen, My opinion is that they both need each other, because the infrastructure the one is building, for example, pipelines and transportation and the infrastructure for refueling stations and so on, in green hydrogen will be needed for natural hydrogen. Do you agree? Do you think there's an overlap here for both industries to work together, for hydrogen experts to shift from one to the other? Or is it maybe just two competing spaces and that's it?
Well, I think eventually this is good for everyone because we could also there's a parallel universe where green hydrogen works already, and this will be great for natural hydrogen because then you can piggyback of the infrastructure already built. But actually, the first time I heard a scientist discuss natural hydrogens, he said that maybe natural hydrogen will be the bridge we need until green hydrogen has become cheap enough.
Right.
But because if we end up in a world with, a lot of excess electricity, you can produce green hydrogen almost everywhere in the world. And that will be great because that will then democratize access to energy molecules to produce everything you want. So natural hydrogen could be that bridge.
Right.
So I truly see that, and I like that the green hydrogen industry is welcoming natural hydrogen at conferences around the world. But let's be honest, to some degree, there will be periods of competition between who's gonna get which kind of investments. And um, if you find really cheap natural hydrogen somewhere in the world, maybe the economy in nearby green hydrogen plants will not be that good to begin with. So that there's a risk. Until the demand for hydrogen is big enough, there'll be a competition, but more between company and company than the wider industries, I would say.
This has been actually very great. This has been, until now, my favorite episode. I think it's very dynamic, and I've learned so much from you that I think if I've learned a lot, I know our viewers and listeners have learned so much about natural hydrogen and even about green hydrogen. And if there are any energy enthusiasts in green hydrogen or other, or solar or wind, you can comment, you can talk about this with us and reach out. I would love to know your views, and maybe even if you don't agree, maybe just reach out and tell us, and then maybe something we can talk about in the future.
Exactly.
So
We'll be happy to learn. I agree with you. We're
yeah,
getting better, Anthony. Eventually, I'll be able to call myself a real YouTuber and my kids will know what I'm doing for work. That'll be great.
that would be great. Absolutely. Hopefully, they do become experts in different spaces. I mean, all kids want to become influencers now. It's crazy, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. Thank you for watching us or listening to us. If you are on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. We love likes and subscribes. And we also love when you subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review on Apple or on Spotify. Don't forget also that on our website, you can find the 2025 Investor Report. There is so much information on the top 10 publicly traded companies and also on the private companies, a few of them, but just enough information for you to find insights. That's all for today. Remember, this comes out bi-weekly. Follow us on our socials, which are on LinkedIn, on the x.com, and so on. And enjoy the rest of your week. See you.